Good evening, everyone. There we go. I can see. Thank you all for joining us tonight in person, virtually, to the City of Dublin's public meeting on the Emerald Connector project. I am Tina Waskowitz, the Deputy Director of Transportation and Mobility, and we also have a couple of council members here tonight. So if you want to raise your hand or introduce yourself, we have Amy Cran, council member in the back corner of the room, and council member Andy Keeler here in the other corner. So thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you all for spending this beautiful evening here at Council Chamber. So we're here tonight because we want your input, and resident input is so important to us. So we're seeking your feedback to make sure that our plans align with your needs and address any concerns you might have. So to walk through our format for tonight, we'll have a brief presentation here. And then we'll break out into the open house format out in the corridor, and then have questions and comments available. We have staff members and team members available to be able to take any questions you might have and to receive any feedback that you'd like to provide on the project. And going online to this Tell Dublin website is also a great way to provide your feedback to us through October 12th for like the 30-day comment period from today. And folks online, you can type in the chat during the presentation if you want to provide any questions or comments. And then that chat will close at the end of the presentation, and we'll have everybody just go ahead and use that Tell Dublin website from that point forward. So during the presentation, we will provide a brief project overview, the background and alternatives, along with a set of concepts to consider for the Emerald Connector over I-270 west of Sawmill, which we're really excited to show you tonight. So we'll review the project schedule and then break out into that open house format to answer any questions and collect input and feedback on this set of concepts and the project in general. So please fill in those comment sheets tonight or any time in the next month. We'll also be providing questions and responses on that website after that 30-day window. So tonight we have some staff members here, and we also have project team members from American Structure Point and MKSK. If everybody either on staff or on the consultant team can raise your hand so you can find who to ask questions to and talk to out in the corridor. Thank you, that sounds great. Two of the project members are actually going to help me out with the presentation here tonight. Joining me from American Structure Point is Tom Hibbert. And we also have Chris Herman with MKSK. So Tom is going to give us a brief overview on the project, and then Chris will lead the aesthetic review and the remaining topics. So now I'd like to hand it over to Tom Hibbert. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. So I'd like to start off tonight, talk a little bit about the background. Where did this concept come from as far as crossing the freeway? It came out of a study that was done for Sawmill Corridor, looking for ways to improve mobility and increase capacity of the roadway. So the corridor study that was done started up at the Hard Road to the north side, over on the left side of the left image there, all the way down to Dublin Granville Road. So there were several alternatives that were looked at, ideas and concepts, and how capacity could be increased along that corridor. One of them was to construct a new crossing. You can see it over on the lower left side there, just west of Sawmill Parkway. That concept conceptualized would reduce congestion along Sawmill Parkway by as much as 20%, and also relieve congestion on Riverside Drive. In addition to that, it would provide a great opportunity for pedestrians and bicyclists as a new crossing that would make it more comfortable for pedestrians crossing this corridor. It also would provide for better access to the Bridge Street district and better distribute traffic along the city street network. So that was the concept that was put together back in 2019. And in 2021, we took a deeper dive into that concept to better determine what would that look like, what could that look like, and where would the right location be for that corridor. So we looked at the number of lanes that would be required, as well as the pedestrian bicycle facilities, what type would be appropriate there, and then the location. So we looked at I-270 all the way from Riverside Drive to the west to Sawmill to the east to identify what we thought were the appropriate locations where we think we could get a new crossing put into place and would best serve the purpose of the project. So as we put those concepts together, we started getting feedback back and forth as those concepts were developed with the public. There were a number of meetings held with the Civic Association, the council, as well as the homeowners associations, and just the newspaper media was briefing the public on what we were doing. What we're doing tonight is continuing that public involvement that we started back then and presenting the alternatives that we've looked at and really asking you for your feedback on the options that we've looked at. So the alternatives are shown here, starting with the dark blue kind of in the middle of the screen. It's alternative 1, the green is 2, the red is 3, orange is 4, and then jump over to the left side, the turquoise, I guess I'll call it, is alternative 5. So to talk a little bit about these alternatives, alternative 1 is shown here. Now north is just flipped from being up, now north is to the right. So not sure if I guess I can use this. So this is Emerald Parkway here, we have I-270 here, Sawmill Parkway here, and then Dublin Granville Road over here. So the new connector comes across the freeway. It starts at Emerald Parkway with a roundabout, goes over the I-270, and then intersects with Tuller Road. One of the advantages for this concept was that the city already owns land in between that's being used for this alternative in between Emerald Parkway and I-270. So that was an advantage. Another big advantage was that as that new connector would come down to the south side of Tuller, it would line up and connect directly into Village Parkway, which would allow traffic to then distribute onto the street network, all the way down to Bridge Park, including John Shields and Tuller itself. So that traffic could be better distributed onto that city street network east and west and didn't rely upon additional street connections to get built to get that distribution, that advantage, that distribution there. What's shown in blue, there's a couple of east-west connectors we looked at that could be built with future development to better connect the network into the rest of the city streets. But again, weren't as important as some of the other alternatives. This is alternative 2, which was developed a little bit further to the east. With this one, a couple challenges. We did have to purchase property if we were to develop this one on the north side of 270, in between that and Emerald Parkway. One of the other challenges that we saw with this, and I guess I should have pointed out earlier, obviously you can see the hospital is under construction there. When we started the study back in 2021, that had not yet started. But we knew that piece of land was a single piece of developable land, and so we were looking at how that property would interact with the future development with the alternatives. So when we were looking at the alternatives, one of the challenges that we looked at was the roundabout intersection on Emerald Parkway would be very close to any access point along Emerald going into that property. And as it turns out, with the hospital under construction, that would be very correct because the roundabout is very close to where we would be intersecting, which is another problem. As we connect to the south, again, integrating it with the street network, in this case, we would have to construct additional connection down to Village Parkway, kind of shown there in green, would be in coordination with future development. That would be a future project that would occur to really get the full benefits of the traffic distribution that we'd like to get in the long term with this connection. So this would require some additional development coordination for those future connections. But alternative 3, and this one is, again, it's a little further east of alternative 2. This one would have no impact on that property to the north that we were talking about, what is today the hospital development. It'd be a longer bridge over I-270 now because the ramps at that point start to split apart from the mainline freeway. So a little bit longer bridge. And like alternative 2 would require additional future connections to the south through the Dublin Village Center. And then alternative 4, again, further east. This one is unique in that it would intersect up at Bright Road as opposed to being intersecting with Emerald Parkway. And it would require, obviously, again, impact the hospital, and it would require a longer, more complicated bridge because it's now crossing the freeway and the ramps separately at this point. It'd also have to be up higher to get up over the ramps. If you're on Sawmill now going down to 270, you know how you ramp down onto the freeway. We'd have to get the bridge over that at that point. So it requires the bridge to be higher, and still requires further future roads to be coordinated with future development that would require some coordination there with the Dublin Village Center. We looked at alternative 5, which was that turquoise one that was all the way over to the west. This one, it really turned out not to be practical, and we kind of dismissed this one because it didn't have the feasibility for meeting the goals of what we were looking to do. The freeway is higher than Emerald Parkway here, so there was no way to get over the freeway and intersect Emerald Parkway like we would like to do right here. So we evaluated it, but it really didn't turn out to be feasible as the other alternatives were. We did our comparison of the alternatives, and this chart that is shown here is also on the board outside the chamber here, where we show the different alternatives, so you can look at it in detail. But this shows the criteria we use to evaluate the alternatives and how we came to our identification of what we think is the most feasible alternative as being number 1. But tonight we're here because we want to have your feedback. Is there anything that you see that we haven't looked at that we should be looking at? We'd like to get your input on these alternatives and what your thoughts are. I want to talk a little bit about something that's similar, or I guess the same for all the alternatives, and that is the actual road itself going over the freeway. So that plan view to the left, its north is now going up again. So the roundabout up there would be an intersection with Emerald Parkway in this concept. The bridge section, or the cross section, the typical section there to the right, is showing what the street would look like. So one of the things we've concluded from the studies that we've done is that we would need to have a 2-lane street that would be sufficient to carry the traffic we expect it to need. And it would be a 25-mile-per-hour street. We're proposing to put in pedestrian sidewalks as well as cycle tracks off to the side. And there would be heavy landscaping along the approaches, as well as the bridge itself, which is a little bit of a unique approach. There's some bridges in downtown Columbus, you see, that have some of that. We're proposing the same concept, similar treatments here. To talk more about that, I know Chris would really like to come up and talk some more about how we plan to do that. Chris?
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone. So I think most of you are familiar with the standard bridge approach, right? Is to put the roadway, condense the sidewalk, have a safety fencing, and take it over whatever you're crossing. What we're really trying to do here, what Dublin's trying to do, is take the entire streetscape so that the streetscape's going over the bridge. So you can see here, we're having a landscape edge that kind of softens the edge of the bridge. We're actually taking street trees and planters across the bridge. So you're still experiencing the street trees. You still have separation between the vehicular traffic and pedestrians and people on bikes. So we're really trying to make this a true multi-modal experience and keep kind of this great design that we have on normal our streets on the bridge crossing as well, because this is really a way to invite the non-motorized public to use this bridge, which is what we want. This is really about continuing to knit the city of Dublin together. So I'm going to use a couple terms, and when you go out and look at some of our concepts, some of the things that change, it helps know some of this terminology. So first of all, for those of you that came in here today in person, we walked by 5 concepts. We're excited to share these 5 concepts. They're not the end all be all, but they give you a different kind of flavor, and we want to get your input from those. So first as an orientation though, this is what it would look like on the bridge. And I want to go through a couple things. So the light blue, number 1, like you usually see on the side screens, the colors, is the parapet. So this is basically the wall that's at the edge of the bridge, just on the edges on a bridge. All of that is in dark green as number 3, is an architectural railing fence treatment. And this is something that's going to change from our concepts, so something to pay attention to. In the kind of darker blue, number 2, is the parapet planters. Now you'll see after this, there's actually landscape planted in that, but we didn't show that in this rendering because then you wouldn't see the other pieces behind it. But there'll be landscape planted in that to soften the edge of the bridge. And then 4, kind of that white area in this rendering, is the sidewalk, the bike, the cycle track, the bikeway, the street trees, those kind of components. So the one thing that's not labeled on here, but I should point out also, the gray columns are pilasters, and that's another thing we're going to talk about. So this is, we're going through the 5 concepts. This is concept 1. We call this the classic Dublin elegance. And this really pulls from what we think is the best pieces of bridges in Dublin. So you have the natural stone, you've got the neutral colors, we've got these the button walls, that's the edges, the approaches to the bridge, vertical, you have a really nice clean curved beam that supports this, and then you've got the architectural railing with the fence that goes across, and on this bridge, one thing you can see is, the pilasters, those vertical columns are small, they kind of provide some of the architectural treatment, and even pylons themselves are stone. So this gives you a sense of that kind of classic Dublin bridge that would fit in a lot with the character bridges we already have here. What does that look like when you're on the bridge? But when you're on the bridge, you can again see the parapet wall examples here, the fencing, the pedestrian scale lights. There'll also be vehicular lighting. This is lighting for pedestrians and bicyclists. And what we tried to show, and again, it's probably going to show better on the side TV monitors, is we want you to pay attention to this fencing is very transparent. This is more attractive architectural fencing, better than chain link, but you see through it, it's transparent, right? They need safety. But we're going to change this on some of the other bridges, so pay attention to that. This concept 2 is, again, the classic Dublin elegance, but we've elevated it a little bit. Now, if you look at the pilasters, the pylons, those vertical columns, they're bigger, a little more of presence, they're taller, trying to make a little bit more of a statement. We're doing kind of a little more with the architectural fencing to make it feel a little different. So now we're starting to make, something that's a little bit more of a presence, a little more of its own individual character. You can also see, and these are things that can happen anywhere, we're putting a little band in the parapet wall. We're trying to create some more architectural features, and again, this could be moving around between the different concepts. What does that look like? Again, similar to the first one concept, we've got transparency, you can see through, but again, safety fencing, that's architectural character. And those pilasters are taller between the fencing. Concept 3, we call the gateway scale, the classic Dublin elegance. Now here, if you'll notice, those columns are much thicker, much taller. Really trying to make that gateway statement. So this has a more physical presence than the 2 previous bridges. And then we're also adding something here, which is that fencing is now a screen wall. It's opaque. This could be internally illuminated, kind of soft set of light. You can see in the bottom right, that's the Long Street Bridge in downtown. We've done this, but it provides a kind of an opaque screen wall, and it changes the character of the feel when you're on the bridge. That's what I want to talk about. So here's a picture of what we're like on the bridge, and the difference here is that it screens the freeway below. And this is one of the areas we like to hear your comments. Some people say, well, I'd like to see the freeway as kind of visual vista, and it's something I want to experience. Some people say, I don't want the spray, the noise that comes from the wind, that comes from being over the freeway. I want it to be hidden. I really want to enjoy the experience on the bridge. And so when we put this opaque screen wall up, it really does make you focus on being on the bridge, and again, got the landscape, got the street trees, cut off lighting. But it doesn't let freeway intrude. It really separates you from the freeway. It is very effective in reducing the noise and the wind and spray, if those things that matter. So this is something to consider. Concept 4, we're changing from that kind of classic to the more modern Dublin elegance. So now we've got that straight beam, and we're in this case showing you a single arc screen wall. Again, this could be somewhat transparent. It could also be opaque. It really serves as a function to block out the wind and noise. It could also be perforated. There's things we could determine, but it also makes a little bit different statement in terms of what the bridge looks like. When you're approaching it on I-270, you visualize it that way, or when you're on the bridge this way. And again, you can incorporate many different patterns or different kinds of artistic features into this screen wall. And then lastly, of taking that even to the next level, we call it, against this modern Dublin elegance, but now we're creating a sculptural screen wall. So in this case, adding color panels to this. It is opaque, that has some color to it. And you can see examples on the bottom there is orange, it could be green, it could be whatever. Also, it's not just changing vertically, it's also changing horizontally. It's got a little more camber to it. So this is something that kind of makes its own statement as almost an artistic piece in itself as part of the bridge. So what that would look like, this gives you a sense of what that would look like if you're on the bridge. So we want to present those as kind of a range of potential options, and we look forward to talking to you in the hallway or down here in a minute about the things you like. But we have surveys. We'd like to hear what you like, what you don't like, if you combine things, if there's things missing that you think you would do differently, or if there's stuff you would play up and enhance as part of this. These are all kind of input, because this is kind of the next step as we look at the bridge design. So here's again the concepts 1, 2, and 3. I think the big thing, again, these are all similar, although there's pilasters, there's vertical columns, the pylons are getting a little larger, more heroic as you go from 1, 2 to 3. And we're also changing that fencing from kind of a nice classic architectural fencing all the way down to an opaque screen wall. And then concepts 4 and 5, this is the modern version. We've got the arcing screen wall, we've got the sculpture screen wall, and a little more modern, contemporary flair to the design of this. So again, this isn't all encompassing, but I think hopefully gives you some things to think about and react to, which we'd love to hear. And now I'm going to have Tina go and talk about the rest of the schedule.
Chris always gets the fun part, showing the fun graphics. So definitely would love to hear all your thoughts on that tonight. Just to give you kind of the big picture project overview timeline, as you can see, as you heard from our project team, we've been working on this for quite a while. There's been a lot of study and thought that has gone into it. Tonight, we're basically right in the middle of this timeline. In the middle of the top, you see the public meeting that we're here to all be together tonight, and out of this meeting and through the comments that we'll receive, we would like to be able to select or identify our preferred alternative to advance and go be able to really get into the details of the design on the project. We are also working on our environmental clearance, so we'll be working on that through the end of this year and probably into next. Beyond that, everything is going to be funding dependent. So we don't have any specific timeframes. We would like to do this as soon as possible, as soon as funding becomes available. But right now we are in the process of requesting those funds and seeing how those applications play out. And then we'll be able to define that timeline based on those funding opportunities. So those kind of big next steps in that process, if funding is awarded, would be right-of-way, utility relocations, and then the physical construction of the project. And with that, we are going to be closing the chat on the online version. So if folks that are online, if you want to hop over to that Tell Dublin website that you see on your screen, that's another area that you can provide comments to us and your input. There's also a way to go back and see those images that Chris just presented. So if you want a reminder on what aesthetic concept number was what, and go to review those, you can get to it through that link. Folks in the room, we've got paper comment sheets out in the corridor and boards, as you can see walking in, so you can review that and leave your comments tonight on paper. You're obviously welcome to jump online and do that anytime in this open comment period through October 12th. So we really thank you all for being here tonight. We've got staff and team project members available to join you in the corridor as you look at the concepts and provide comments back to us on the overall project. So thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I know it's hard to be here and to take time to do all of these things, and it's so important for us to hear from you. So thank you. It's a beautiful evening. We really appreciate your time and look forward to speaking to you more as the project continues. Thank you.